All right, family. We back. And we're coming back out of Rebel for the Hell of It, The Life of Tupac Shakur by Ahmad White. Okay. Going back to where we left off at. In Rebel for the Hell of It. Memories of overdevelopment. Okay, y'all ready? Let's get started. Sure this see something look like it's got an X on it. Let's get these speakers right, make sure they right. Okay. So let's get started. Hold on just a minute, family. I just gotta check something. Okay, just want to make sure the volume was there on a previous recording. So let's get started. Tupac listened, observed, and absorbed. His bright eyes reflected a generation alert to the culture and the times. What he sensed was the skid that was taking place on the road to social equity. When Reagan smashed the air traffickers strike, his unprecedented action produced a shudder among people brought up to believe in ideas of fair wages, workers' integrity, and the hope the unions had represented for more than 5 decades. A new desperation was creeping in. Something cold was undercutting the hot passions of righteous activism that had inflamed the previous generation of Black youth. Tempering the lessons of Feeney exemplified and that adultery endowed with higher moral purpose of Feeney's dreams. Like the beliefs of so many parents teaching their children through the mythology of ideas and helping them make sense of their everyday endeavors and setbacks was being undermined by a coarsening social temper. One of the delusions of the Dr. Spock generation is that children can be sheltered from the world's harsh and bewildering realities. But the surprising candor and realism heard in many rap records prove otherwise. A child's sensitive awareness is part of growing up. Information about the world is pointlessly hidden from children because they seek it out, and the world imposes its hard truths anyway. Through shared language and daily media bombardment, American childhood is imprinted with the spirit of the times. To an individual for whom all things are new and a moral education takes place, jumping sentimental notions with brutal logic to create an image of the way the world works. Childhood pleasure struggles with practicality. It can either be unnerving or fulfilling to imagine how a child would acquire the necessary balance. During daily subway rides and walks through New York, the sight of homelessness, deprivation, and violence prompt Tupac to ask his mother, why? Afeni's replies must have been tempered to instill hope as well as resolve. She needed to give her child a sense of worth, balancing the joy they found among family and friends with the encroaching poverty and problems of post-Panther life. Probably the only child who understands the relation between pleasure and struggle is an artistic one. Observing the aggression and rage, the intensity of New York life that makes all frantic and frenzy seem natural, or at least unchangeable. Tupac may have been affected, but it was theater school that shaped his intensity. Exposure to expressive arts gave ring to his imagination and to the dramatization of whatever impulses, convictions, or confusions he felt. Studying drama also inspired his creative approaches, which included writing. Reverend Daughtry spoke of Tupac's playwriting efforts. Tupac told me of one play in particular. A young man was running away from hitmen and ran into this house where he hid out, and on it went. And when he was through, I said to him, why not have the young man go into a church and have a minister to help him? He paused. He thought. He looked at me and said, that's a good idea. You see, I have to write what I know about, what I have lived. I don't know anything about the church or religion. Afeni enrolled Tupac in the Harlem Theater Group, the 127th Street Assembly. At the age of 12, his first performance took place at the Apollo Theater in a production of Lorraine Hansberry's play about a Black Chicago family planning to escape urban poverty by moving to an all-white suburb, a raisin in the sun. Tupac had the kid's role, Travis, the son of Walter Lee Younger, who witnesses a microcosm of Black American social striving. Travis' most important moment paralleled Tupac's own life. He is brought to the center of the family turmoil, silently put in place by his strong-willed grandmother, who demands the boy's father act on principle so that his son can observe the proper code of behavior. I come from 5 generations of people who were slaves and sharecroppers. But ain't nobody in my family never let nobody pay them no money. That was a way of telling us he wasn't fit to walk the earth. We ain't never been that poor. We ain't never been that dead inside. No, Travis, you stay right here and you make him understand what you're doing, Walter Lee. You teach him good like Willie Harris taught you. You show where our 5 generations done come to. Go ahead, son. Such a play, such a moment. Forces a knowledge on the actor as it does on the audience. Playing Travis added to Tupac's sense of alienization. It gave a deeper purpose to the extracurricular activity of acting, making use of his dawning sense of injustice, leading him to a more serious appreciation of childhood than his street-running peers, who often taunted him for his differences. This is something that none of them, kids, can do, Tupac proclaimed, proud of his sophisticated skill, yet revealing his adolescent pain and uncertainty. I didn't like my life, but through acting, I could become somebody else. A Southern shift would enhance that perception. In 1985, Afeni moved the family from New York to Baltimore. Hardship instigated the change, but there was also man trouble and, in the city itself, the atmosphere of a trophy. As an ex-Panther, Afeni watched through the 70s and into the 80s as conditions for Black America worsened, particularly in New York, with its ethnic divisions and municipal power splits that repeatedly excluded Black citizens, starting out in the Bronx. She had shuttled her family from borough to borough and expurgated mother courage. She began to understand the allure that the South held for many northern Blacks, northern life, with its post-World War II promise of jobs and opportunity. Let me say that again, with its post-World War II promise of jobs and opportunity. Why am I stopping there? Because Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was saying, it was in a circle of intellectual Blacks for Black empowerment, and he was stating the same thing. Every time what they announce to us is a promise of jobs and opportunity. Man, you can keep your jobs and keep your opportunity. We're gonna start our own businesses to produce our own jobs and expand to bring on our own opportunities for us and everybody with us. How about that? We'll give you a job. Began to pall as the nation changed and the economy supported fewer opportunities for a working class livelihood. Urban Baltimore's large Black population and its unique half Southern small town scale, its alternately charged yet docile pace helped soothe the family's agitation. Tupac attending Rolling Park Junior High. Let's go and get into this, family. I took my glasses off. I don't know. Look like I can see better without them. So, but let's go. Let's see if we can look that up. Let's see here. What is it called? Rolling Park Junior High. Rolling Park Apartments. Rolling Park Junior High. I don't know. I don't see it. Might be on there. Let's get back into it. Tupac attended Rolling Park Junior High up to the 8th grade. Improvising, making the kind of adjustments and facing the kind of disorientation that Army brats experience when their parents are constantly forced to relocate. It was only with his admittance to the Baltimore School of the Arts that the dreaming revolutionary found a statue outlet for his energy. In teaching styles of expression, BSA accepted random switching of identities and play-acted emotional intensity. Among the students, disputes and infiltrations could be playful, explored, as in musical chairs. In contrast to the Bronx School of Swift Kicks, We all know where the Bronx is, right? But may not. You know? Tupac found himself enrolled in what modern America, with its downsizing of federal interest, shrinkage of government funds allocated to education, and massive cutting of school appropriations, will come to see as an increasingly rare opportunity to learn and experiment. Once imagination was sparked, Tupac's creativity bloomed. That school was saving me. You know what I'm saying? I was writing poetry and shit, and I became known as MC New York because I was rapping and then I was doing the acting thing. Tupac's rap vocation came as a part of the intensified growth spurt that many early 80s teens were experiencing. This was also a period of grassroots renaissance in those Northeast enclaves like the Bronx and New Jersey, where rap began. A Baltimore friend was fatally shot while playing with guns, a now frequent gun culture tragedy. At the time, it was the start of a new dread reality spreading through American cities. Part of what gave hip hop appeal was its recognition of such savage realities. The mainstream rarely recognized or tried to make sense of the drugs and violence sweeping the inner cities. It would take a cultural revolution like hip hop, with Black kids putting their daily lives into their own narrative terms, to express this disturbing new reality. It was an experience that only Martin Scorsese in his 1969 film, Who's That Knocking at My Door? Let's look him up. Martin. Oh, there you go. That's the guy. Okay. Guy had touched on before when he portrayed a room of fitful young white men toss a weapon among them in a slow motion orgy of danger and risk. As the camera tracks the abject fear or hilarity on each random face in that movie, Scorsese, anticipates the complications of hip hop culture spiked with horrendous social rituals, the compulsion to flaunt arms, the accrue to urban male adolescence, musical dread. It found its way into an early Tupac rhyme. Gun in my hand, bullets in motion, crushing like crumbs, the maniac psycho makes the bloods all run. Gun control thus became the subject of the first rap Tupac performed in Baltimore. He responded in his generation's natural terms, but also for perhaps the only time, his rap accepted the taboos of the older generation, achieving continuity with adults did more than stroke his young ego. Tupac also took artistic assurance from it. Speaking of this period, he said, it was a whole other experience for me to be able to express myself, not just around Black people, but also around white people and other kinds of people. It was the freest I ever felt in my life. The accent was on youth, and young people were eager to educate and exploit themselves with all the highs and lows that implies. Tupac's classmates exhibited a singular kind of self-taught pride in their ability to signify and vent. A pride tinged with adolescent arrogance. Attending Baltimore School of the Arts after the 1980s release of the film Fame. Let's look up Baltimore School of Arts. That's the Baltimore School of Arts. There go Tupac right there. There you go right there. Went to this school. And I know y'all know the movie Fame, the show Fame, right? Was it? Yeah, it was a movie, Fame. That right there. Okay. Attending Baltimore School of the Arts after the 1980 release of the film Fame, which will romanticize the exploits of teens in New York's high school of the performing arts, would have felt like a journey toward the mecca of one's desires and ambitions. Encouraged to see themselves as special, these kids, I call them children, got in a compounded sense of self-worth at a school that catered to the belief in unique talent. This was where Tupac met the aspiring actress, Jada Pinkett. You know who Jada Pinkett is, right? I know some of the young babies may not know. So let's go to Jada. Yeah. Watch out, Willie. Big Willie. All right. Stay steady. This was where Tupac met the aspiring actress Jada Pinkett, and they began kindred careers. As childhood photos attest, Tupac was a darkly handsome boy, and Pinkett a light-skinned looker. As teens, both were physically striking. They had trim figures and could bat long lashes over large, direct eyes that didn't hesitate to meet another's gaze. Tupac and Pinkett must have found each other and a lifelong friendship in that uneasy and conflicting fellowship of adolescent narcissism and self-regard. In the way that Tupac's motor constantly seemed to be running, and in the snapping alertness that makes Pinkett a riveting, I'm trying to say her name, Jada Pinkett, but it's by reading it, it's totally different. It's kind of throwing me off because it's like Pinkett. But anyway, a riveting, if not always convincing, actress. They invented their own street stardom, playing an odd riff on Muhammad Ali's 60s pride. They created a new hip-hop style centered on perpetual preening, whether there was a party, a class exercise, a stage competition, or not. These intensely social exercises in self-testing, self-consciousness, and self-promotion are part of the universal teenage experience, a transition wherein the dull familiarity of family life is traded for the excitement of new friends worldliness, and independence. For Tupac, this meant something of a respite from his mother's legacy of activism and the male figure darting in and out of his life, uncertain choices for role models. Theater, specifically the fun and interplay of performing, offered him a world away from home. Always on, Tupac could escape the day-to-day trials his mother was facing to support her children. He found independence and flirtation too. Tupac and Pickett paired up well in the teenage idol, both gifted, both extrovert. They could seem to be challenging whoever else was around them. It's in drama school that one learns to make use of the buried insecurities that inspire outside expression and the need for attention grabbing. Tupac and Pickett practiced fame's secret motivation, putting impudence on the surface to cover up the fear underneath. Notice, acclaim is then the reward that bolsters self-confidence. In theater, it is not uncommon for such behavior and technique to become the basis of a style. It explains part of what one could call Tupac's and Pickett star quality. Out to make something of themselves by any means necessary. Their sexuality is joined to will. As 60s student activist Stokely Carmichael defined it, the will not to be deterred. Excuse me, I don't usually read out, so I gotta get back used to doing it and all that stuff. And got rusty. It's all right. I ain't perfect. There we go. Some years later, Tupac confided to the European press about his fame-like days. I felt like I was out of place. I learned a good admiration for the real world because it was different cultures, different people. I saw females kissing females, males kissing males. So it really wasn't a big thing to me. Later on, when everybody was tripping on homosexuality, I already saw that in my school. Role playing for the young thespian meant learning to trip off certain ideas of Black masculinity. Appropriate behavior tips for the young mover who refuses to be tricked. It's not surprising then that Afeni's son should emerge from theater school with a defiant spirit that made Carmichael, who was eventually to take the name Kwame Ture, glad to observe. I know y'all about know who Afeni is from the last episode, but just in case you missed out, you need to go back and check it out. But this is her right here. That's his mother. Okay. Kwame Ture, glad to observe. One of the most promising developments in the nation today is the new mood among Black college students who have long formed a conservative group with standard Horatio Alger dreams, imitating white America at its worst. Agitation on Black campuses in 1967 was profound and different from 1960 through 61. There is today less of a moral and more of a political orientation. Humble appeal is gone. A powerful mood has developed based on a Black consciousness. But Tupac's generation, his acting out class, turned Toure's prophecy upside down. Tupac learned an impatient, multi-source agitation from both the holy church, and the wicked state that, without a common moral impetus, at least proved to be political through perhaps no, not more, though perhaps not more. He preferred action, but an action without introspection. Agitation turns back on itself. Rebellion for the hell of it. The impulse to speak out and strike out does little to resolve disquiet. It reflects a demand for answers that is inherent in youth's ingenious bluster and attack, a demand that is all too easily rejected by older listeners who have forgotten their own adolescent anxiety. An adolescent spent in a clearer, more defined, more active mode, better past that rap itself now rhapsodize about. Pay attention to what the hip hop generation feels. It's poignantly clear in what they say, even when they say it in ways that confound expectations. Music is a key. Teens' love for rap in the early 80s was indeed special. They had discovered the value of music to express identity and feeling, their own form of theater. But by the mid-90s, hip hop had foundered. The drastic turn toward gangster became more of an industry standard than a cultural absolute. Then a new set of rap songs appeared, creating a virtual subgenre to the prevailing gangster fantasy. It clues one end to what ideas and longings were also in Tupac's head during that time between acting school and rap recording in the mid-90s. Like most of his peer group hip hop heads, Tupac grooved to Pete Rock. You know who Pete Rock is? He grooved Pete Rock and CL Smooth's Reminisce. We're gonna put him in there too then. All right. And CL Smooth's Reminisce. Ahmad's Back in the Day. Okay. Ahmad's. I don't know if I remember that guy. Oh, yeah. Okay, his name was Ahmad. I remember the face. Okay. And Coolio, I know everybody know who Coolio is, right? I remember I used to make songs to all these bad boys, instrumentals. I had them songs today. And Coolio's, I remember, in Wu-Tang Clans, pretty sure you know who Wu-Tang is. Wu-Tang Clan, the Wu-Tang Clan's reworking of the Gladys Knight's version of The Way We Were. Y'all know who Gladys Knight is, right? You know, I might not be spelling it right, but it should pop up. No, not no Gladys. Gladys. I don't know who that is. Let's get it right then. Gladys. Her. Yeah. All that. Version of The Way We Were. Released when Tupac and Wu-Tang were preschoolers. So it seems like a strain of genetic memory reveal a sincerity and open-heartedness that is part of these young artists' relationship to the past, focusing on family cohesion, better days, fun without stress, the song's poise, By sheer contrast, questions about their current lives. Hip hop nostalgia spins a subtle response to the facts of life that may appear harsh and intractable. Looking back on the North from his new home in Baltimore, who represent Baltimore up here? What you know about Baltimore? Baltimore, Tupac could affirm the sentiment expressed by his buddies in Live Squad's Heartless and its memorial line. See what happens to your life when you're born in New York. Everybody know about New York, right? Everybody know about New York, right? Remembrance of times past and the longing for peace, even if conjured in affected memory. These are feelings Tupac shared. The flavor of 70s black pop, a generally agreed upon glory decade, is at the heart of most of these hip hop references. It suggests once there was something better, we felt better. Society had not yet abandoned us. This yearning for what Ahmad calls the years when I was raised, what those gruff Wu-Tang adepts recognize as a mere yesterday, differs from the exaltation of adult nostalgia. It is symptomatic of the unbearable stress young people face today as never before. In an appropriately weary way, hip hop idolizes a childhood that never really was, painting the past to make it seem positively serene. And because of this, it is possible to understand that hip hop, despite its exaggerated brutishness, contains an effort to retrieve soul. Tupac, the acting student, had to be aware of the motivation to make a virtue out of what in modern America had been deemed inhuman and unsalvageable. As Wu-Tang proved, the hardest kid feels it, even as they recall their strung out parents, pass as the setup for their own rebellion. Retrieving soul means recollecting something real. The child who attempts to make a new world from his parents' past is a homegrown revolutionary. Tupac and Jada Pinkett. Picture right here. Let's blow it up. Right there. All right, and that will be ending that one, family. We'll be coming back next time with chapter 2. Rewind the birth. Rewind the birth. With that being stated, before I say, well, I'm going to say it. Keep your heads up, stay focused, and read. We're going to go out with another song, instrumental. Let's get it going. Let's get this popping, babe. Let's get this popping. What's cracking? What's cracking, babe? What's the hold up? I even played them. Well, let's see. I played them all then. We gotta get something popping up in here, man. Here we go. Instead of you alone, come over the wrong, man. You all alone in the privacy up in the home. Instead of being, until then, relax and pay them ends and get them dividends. To very end, we flipping flows all the time up on the mind. We coming through with simple parables and the signs. It's only time, and then you see a real grind. Come from a black mind, yeah, in time. My name is Arlando, she's ferocious on the hostess, and I don't stop even when they coming with the potion. I keep my mind on the money, money on my mind, but the first thing is about is the mental black mind, cause all the rest of that is coming in time. Yeah, get you going. I don't be freestyling no more like I used to. Used to have them mad, ready to fist up and get bad. Pissed off mad. Too much other stuff to do as being a black dad.